All right, I just recorded this already and I did the whole entire thing with no audio. So I'm going to re-record for you guys so you guys can hear me talk. I'm going to hide those tools. Ignore that. Ignore what I just said there. All right, we're going to make a phone holder. Oh man, I forgot my phone holder. I'm all flustered. But I'm going to show you guys how to do this. Here it is. And we'll 3D print it. And basically, it looks like this. Okay, and look at this. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, I am preparing this for a middle school audience. All right, so just know that going into it. If it's not your style, it may not be your style. Maybe you're not in middle school, but this is what we're making. I'm going to show you the whole process in this other tab I created, Final Example. You don't have to worry about doing anything right now. But, oh boy, I have this thing called a rollback bar. Why won't it let me do that? Just wants to move everything. Come on, partner check. All right, this thing is glitching out. No, I'm gonna try refreshing it. Come on. Hopefully it's still recording too. All right, there we go. That's what we wanted to happen. So it's this is what it's gonna look like after we extrude it. That's what we're going to start with, is just what's called a sketch right here. Now, a couple pointers about operating OnShape. You got two main toolbars. See all these shapes? They're 3D shapes. That's because it's your 3D toolbar. See all these shapes? They're 2D shapes. That's because it's your sketch toolbar. Those are the two toolbars you'll be using. Right click will spin you around. Whoop. Scroll wheel will zoom you in and out. Okay, one single right click will bring up some menus. You can select entities, okay, dots, points, planes. Okay, you can select more than one. To deselect, you can just click them again with your left clicker. All right, that should be enough to get you going. You can also take this guy, move it around, and you can spin things around like that. You can click the different parts of the dice to see what it looks like from different views. So OnShape operation 101 complete. Next, we're going to sketch this shape. Okay, so we're going to do this, and you're going to hit the sketch button right there. Okay, now when that happens, it's going to bring up one of these little mini windows. Okay, they're always tucked away up here, and sometimes students don't realize they're right there, but always look for these mini windows. These mini windows pretty much walk you through step by step what you need to do. For example, right here in this blue rectangle, it's saying sketch plane. So without explicitly saying it, it's saying, where do you want this sketch? Do you want it in this front plane? Do you want it in this right plane? Do you want it in this top plane? Where do you want it? So I'm going to fill that blue rectangle just by clicking on the front plane. Now it knows where it wants it. Okay, and we get this kind of big blue rectangle showing up saying this is where sketch 1 is going to go. But we're going to rename sketch 1 because basically what we're doing is we're going to sketch this shape right here. And I'm going to go ahead and just call that the side view. I'm going to, side profile sketch. And this is just a habit we do starting out early so that later on down the road when we get into some more complex builds, it's easier to go. Now, notice how I hit that green check mark and this mini window disappeared and I'm back to my 3D toolbar. Okay, I'm just going to re-enter my sketch by double clicking it and I'm back in the sketch. So you can exit and enter your sketch as many times as you want, but to make any changes, you have to have this side profile sketch mini window popped up. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm viewing it right at the front, just right on the front plane. We're going to sketch this on the front plane. I'm going to be looking right at it. And then I'm going to use my line tool. So a couple sketch pointers. You can start with the line tool. You don't have to do this part. But notice it's like sometimes I'll get students who are like, oh my gosh, I can't stop making lines. How do I stop making lines? I just keep making lines. Okay, just hit the escape button, which is the button all the way on your upper left keyboard. ESC, hit the escape button, and then it will stop making lines. Okay, if you end up in a pickle, you can use this undo button here. Okay, and all those lines will disappear. All right, so you can utilize the escape button to turn the feature on and off. The other thing I want to tell you is when I click line, notice how that tool is depressed. It's like a button, and I can tell that it's pushed in because it's a darker tint. All right, so let's say, oh, I don't want to do line, I want to do circle. Now the circle button's pushed in and deep and in there. Now, as long as that button's turned on, it's going to keep drawing circle after circle after circle until I hit the escape key. Okay, and now I got nothing picked, so it's not going to do anything. Or I can click the circle key and it'll turn the button off. All right, so we're going to use the line tool and only the line tool, but make sure you pay attention to whether you have it on or off. Now, this right here, show constraints. While you're learning OnShape, I recommend having that turned on. That's going to help you learn about what relationships are automatically established by OnShape. And when I say relationships, I mean, for example, it'll tell you, hey, this line has to be perfectly perpendicular to this line. Or parallel, or whatever it might be. It might be that this line has to be touching this origin. That's what we call that. Like in your graphing classes where you have an origin and on your X and Y, that's what this is. So I recommend having show constraints on, and basically I'm going to sketch this profile right now. So I'm going to come straight over, okay? And notice when I come straight over, if I end up off the x-axis, like a graphing class, any bit, it will lose that gold dotted line, and I'll also lose that symbol, which is a symbol for a horizontal constraint. So I'm going to click it horizontally. Look, same thing for vertical, okay? I'm going to come over, same option. I want it to be horizontal. These are two parallel lines at the top. So I'm going to make it horizontal. I'm going to come a little bit past the halfway point. You have to be careful because if you lock it to this halfway point, then this constraint right here means that no matter what happens, the end of this line has to be lined up with the midpoint. So watch. Okay, see that? So we want to make sure when we draw this top line that we come past that halfway point just a little bit, that we don't establish that constraint, because we actually don't want that constraint. Okay, same here. You want to be careful not to establish new relationships. Okay, we're going to come up here, and I'm actually just going to do this and that. Now, right there, I made sure I was perfectly above that dot, okay, to help things out. All right, now, these constraints, you can hover over them, and so like right now, I'm hovering over that two diagonal lines. Those two diagonal lines are a symbol for parallel. It's saying that the bottom of this groove, okay, has to be parallel to the bottom of the phone stand, all right? This one is just basically saying those two gold lines have to be touching at the end, okay? They can do almost anything else, but they have to be touching at the end, okay? We talked about vertical and horizontal. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to fix this, because obviously it's not exactly, we got a little lip there that's a little too high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually turn off constraints because they're kind of in my way now, and see how I can move this up and down. All right, and let's see here. What do I want to do? I want to make it so that these two lines are in the exact same plane. Not, yeah, kind of plane. Here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to take another line. I'm going to connect them. Okay. Then I'm going to click that line, that connecting line I made, and I'm going to turn it into a construction line. All right. Now what that construction line does is it says, hey, you are a line to help kind of put all of us other lines together, but you're not a real line. Like, you're just there to help us out. You're not going to turn into 3D stuff. We're going to turn into 3D stuff. You're just going to help us get in line. So now that I have that construction line, what I can do is I can say, hey, you construction line, you must be horizontal. All right. And so now what's happened is no matter what I do, these two lines have to be together because of the coincident constraint and because of the horizontal. So you should be at about this point now. You should have this shape. All right. Now, the other thing that we're missing are dimensions. So the dimensions are what tells us how big everything is. Now, when I go through this process, your thing may not change the same way my thing changes. So like right now, all I want to change is this bottom black line. So I'm going to turn on the dimension button and I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to do 2 and watch. It changes everything else. It even made it shorter. I'm going to undo, redo that so you can see it. Okay, it even shrunk it down, made it shorter just a little bit because it's trying to increase my workflow. Because the faster my workflow is, then the more I use this product, the more productive I am, the more money I'm making, the more money I can spend on a product like this. So it's trying to improve my workflow. So it's maintaining the same proportions at about where I sketched it at. Now you might hit a number and it might just go, wah, you know, something crazy might happen. If that happens, you can undo, redo. You can start from scratch or just do some troubleshooting. Some of this is going to go seamless for one kid one day, and the next day he's going to be like, what is going on? And then vice versa. So it's a great opportunity to just kind of put on your problem-solving cap, play around, goof off, and the only thing you're messing here with is pixels. You know, you're not gonna wreck a 3D printer. You're not gonna have kickback at the table saw. You're not gonna put your finger into a bandsaw blade right now. You're just messing with pixels. So feel free to kind of explore and troubleshoot on your own as we go through this process. If anything comes up a little skewed from what I'm doing, because that happens. So now I'm gonna come up and I'm gonna go 0.625 up, which is 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so I'm gonna bring that over. I'm gonna enter 0.625. And now I have it. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to see how far. Let's see. My next dimension that I have is the width of this phone holder. Okay, so I have a phone holder about 0.5 of an inch wide. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make that say 0.5. Now, when you guys use a dimension, I'm going to undo and just show you guys this real quick. One thing you want to be sure of, for now anyways, is we're not going to use any dimensions where the lines shoot up at an angle. All of our dimensions, if you ever get anything at an angle, recheck everything that's going on. All of our dimensions should shoot straight up or straight over. We made that 0.5. Now, the next thing we want to do is these two lines are kind of out of whack compared to what we want. Now we can fix that pretty easily by saying you and you have to be parallel. All right. So I can show the constraints. See when I hover over the parallel and it lights that up, says, hey, these two lines are parallel. Now we have that shape that we want right there. Okay. And then the next thing we want to do, according to our plan here, is be 0.563 away from the edge. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to dimension this 0.563 and we're good to go. All right. Now, the last dimension we're missing is this angular, two dimensions. We need to do this angle and we need to do this 0.313. That tells us how deep the thing is. So we're going to come and I'm going to go ahead and just do how deep it is. Remember, we want everything to shoot straight up or down, nothing angled off, 0.313. And now we're going to go ahead and add our angle dimension and we're going to make that, let's see, it's at 45 right now. We're going to make it at 70, which gives us a 20-degree angle on the other side of that. And look, we're fully got a black defined, that's what we call that. It's fully defined, meaning when it's blue like this, and I can click and drag it, it's got very few rules to follow. That line is in anarchy world. It's just gonna kind of flip and flop and do whatever, all right? But you don't want it to flip and flop and do whatever, because this phone holder doesn't work for every single phone. It may not work for yours. So we could 3D print this for you, and you bring it home and you're like, oh, that doesn't work. Well, that's why we're gonna make sure to test a few of these out. But you may have to go into your file and change it. And if you try to make changes while you have this flippy floppy stuff going on, it's going to give you a headache. So we make sure that everything is fully defined. That way, if we need to go in and make changes, it's easy peasy. Okay. So I'm going to go back and get everything back to black. Back to black. All right. What did I do here? Oh, the angle. Make that 70. Okay, all righty. Gravy. Okay, so I've got everything there. I also want to show you this real quick. Notice how when I did that, all right, all I did was actually tell it that this and this has to be 70, but watch that black line when I hit redo, or this blue, the other blue line. It became automatically black. Why? Well, let me change something. Let me see if you can catch what I changed here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that angle again. And based off what I changed, is that line going to stay blue or black? Make that 70. It stayed blue. What did I change? Well, I turned off the parallel constraint. So now this line doesn't have to follow that parallel rule. Okay? I could click and drag it, and it doesn't have to be parallel. And it's not cooperating super. There we go. It doesn't have to be parallel to that other line. Now, I'm going to make sure, I'm going to turn that parallel back on. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to hit parallel. Boom. Now it has to follow that rule. It also has to be 70 degrees because basically we told this line, hey, you have to be at a 70-degree angle. And then this line's like, well, I also have to be parallel to you. So you have to be at a 70-degree angle. And then the command kind of followed. When I turned that off, we said, hey, you have to be at a 70-degree angle. And then this guy over here didn't get the order because the parallel was turned off. He was okay with whatever. So that's why we do that. Now, got rid of all the flippy floppy. And what we're going to do now is we're going to extrude this out. Okay, we're getting into a 3D world right now, 3 dimensions. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to switch over to our 3D toolbar by hitting this extrude button in the upper left-hand corner. And it's automatically wanting to make this grow for us. We are growing our drawing. Okay, you can see the number right here. It's going to change, okay, based on how much we grow it. But don't try and get it right on 2. Just enter 2. And we're going to make it 2 inches, and then it's going to grow like that. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to change this to side profile extrude. This is one of those habits we're just building early. Extrude 2 inches. Okay, and that'll just make things easier to troubleshoot down the road when we get into much more complex builds. All right, check, and look at that. We have a 3D phone holder ready to go. A couple pointers here. When you hover your mouse over a tool, it'll actually bring up a window that tells you what that tool does. As you're learning OnShape, that's a very helpful feature. So take time to read those as you're kind of playing around. I'm going to wrap this video up. All right, and then I'm actually going to start another one that'll show you how to put your name. I don't know how well you can see it. How to put your name on the front of your phone holder so that if you want to, if you got done through this pretty, you whiz right through it, then that'll give you something to do to kind of customize it, and then we know whose is whose. All right, so hope that went okay for you. Please provide feedback. If something was like really goofy, if you put a timestamp on it too, that's super helpful. Sometimes I go back and edit or just completely redo it. But if there's a point of confusion and you point that out, I'll try and address it for the next video, or possibly even go back and edit it in this video. So the next student that's sitting in your chair will have hopefully an easier time, and we can get rid of the number of confusions that arise. So thank you for watching and doing, and I'll see you in the next video. Let's remember how to turn this thing off. See ya.